I'd better make sure that my cameras are good. There we go. And check the time. Find my phone. And get some books.
Alan?
Yes, Kathleen.
Well, I got my little thank you poem into the whole chat, but it's a little choppy.
Okay, well, I tell you what, after this is all over, I'll save it and retype it and send it to everybody, so we'll have an unchopped version. How does that sound?
Okay. Do you still have, would you like me to read it?
I would love you to read it.
Okay. Here we go. Where's Pianimals? Pianimals. So the name of this is Gallery View. Unmasked we meet, together pecking bird beaks on fall boards, wiggling ugly ducklings into swans, grasping keys edge to learn the next ATPM from dear Alionus, leveraging our way to the most beautiful sound in the world.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful. Great. I'm very touched. Wow. And there, for everybody who's new here, there's a precise summary of just what we're going to be doing. I see we have Ria from where? Can't hear you. You have to unmute your microphone. There you go.
From Germany, Wiesbaden.
From Wiesbaden. Haha, nice. Great. Willkommen. Great. Good to have you. And oh my God. Let's see if I can say this. Tverdokebova. Helena Tverdokebova. Did I get it?
Hi.
Hi.
Tverdokebova.
Tverdokebova.
Bravo.
Where are you from?
I'm from Russia, but I live in Italy.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting mix. Great. Which part of Russia? Which part of Russia?
I don't understand.
Russia is a big country.
Yes,
Quale parte della Russia?
of course.
Great. Well, if we had someone from Africa and Australia, we would have all six continents. But I don't think we're going to get anybody from Australia because it's just about 5 or 6 in the morning there. A little bit early for people. Yeah. So it's 6 o'clock. We're on the hour, and we're on the hour wherever you are.
Yeah.
Whenever part of the. Oh my goodness, Kemal Gekic.
Oh, your goodness! I'm glad you recognize your goodness is right here.
Fantastic.
Ah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. I don't see Renee, but I see Alan, which is also almost as good.
You don't see me?
I saw you before I unmuted myself, but Now I don't see anything
Uh,
except, oh, yeah. Oh, I see you.
quiet.
I see you now. Yeah. Good. So,
You're muted now.
okay, good.
Uh-huh.
Okay, listen, good luck to you. I don't know how long I will stay, okay?
Okay, well, we're just getting we're just getting started. It's a pleasure and an honor to have Maestro here with us. And of course, this is the guy who taught me many of the things that ended up in this book, Pianimals. And it's a new approach to piano technique. Actually, Kemal and I have interminable arguments about this because his basic idea is that you can't play the piano when you're thinking about your ribs, and all this physical stuff is just a bunch of baloney. But over the years, having observed him and noticed that he does certain things differently from a lot of the standard pianists, I've actually learned a lot about how to play the piano in a way where you feel free and where you feel easy and where you feel more effectively able to express your musical ideas fully. So I think although we do seem to argue a lot, we're actually headed towards the same goal, which is to have the music be as colorful and as rich and as emotionally varied as possible. So I came here to Yugoslavia 30 years ago to study with this guy, and we had 10 very, very rich years. I worked as his assistant and learned a lot, played a lot of concerts, developed a lot. And then he moved to Florida. I moved to Wuhan, China, where I taught for a year. And of course, my daughter Masha was born there. And when I came back, I left a little something in one of the markets that took about 20 years to develop, but now that's also finding full expression, and of course leading to us having a year off where I could work to develop the latest iteration of these ideas about the physical body and piano technique. So I've written several big books. If the camera was pointing a little more that way, you could see them back there: The Craft of Piano Playing, Honing the Pianistic Self-Image, etc., etc. But this book takes the ideas and distills them down. It does not weaken them, but it makes them more accessible to studio teachers and to kids, so that their playing can advance by leaps and bounds instead of at a snail's pace, through the judicious use of the body, but use of the body towards musical ends. Now, I'm also a Feldenkrais practitioner now. Feldenkrais method is a method that looks at the neuromotor aspect of movement. So we have a skeleton. If I didn't have a skeleton, I would be a blob on the floor. And many movement modalities, they deal a lot with the muscles, and physiotherapists will relax muscles. But Feldenkrais had this ingenious idea not to deal directly with the muscle, but to realize that the muscle is suffused with nerves, both sensory nerves and motor nerves, which go to the brain. And those nerves, they send a picture of not only the muscle, but the bone upon which the muscle is acting. And when that picture of the bone is more clear, then the brain can send more effective messages to the muscles. Now somebody is unmuted, so I think Henry, could you mute yourself, because I'm getting an echo of my own voice. A very, very simple example: if I'm pushing against a wall like this, it takes a lot of muscular effort and I don't get that much result. If I straighten up and I line up these bones there, then bam, there's a tremendous amount of force transmitted through the bones. Why? Because they're lined up. The muscles have virtually nothing to do. The kinetic energy goes through the bones when they're at an optimal angle. So Feldenkrais developed very, very sensitive way of moving where you sense every tiny change in the musculature and in the angles of the bones so that the brain can better organize movement. We'll get to that in a minute because that's going to be the substance of the lesson we're going to do together. But as a Feldenkrais practitioner looking at piano technique, at a certain point I came across a metaphor which made everything make much more sense and which allowed me to clear up several problems that have plagued pianists for generations. And that's when I came to see the hand as a mini body. The finger as a leg with an ankle and a knee and a hip joint, and the hand as a pelvis, and the torso and the forearm as a torso that's breathing. And so if I tried to walk and I tried to keep my hip joints lower than my knees, I wouldn't get very far, would I? But how many pianists do you see where the middle of the hand is kind of sunk down? And then you see these relaxation moves because they're trying to get rid of the tension, but of course the tension is there because the middle of the hand's arch, the hip joint, which should be the highest, has sunk down. So of course there's going to be tension. Now, there are certain muscles which move the finger like this. Would you all please make a movement like this? I'm interested to see. Oh, you guys are pretty good. Sometimes there's somebody who's doing what I expected. At a piano conference, I'll do this, and half the people will do this. You see, they're curling their fingers. I did not curl the fingers at all. I kept them totally flat. So when you're curling the fingers, you're using the ankle of the finger, you're using the knee of the finger, but the hip joint is not moving. Now, flattening them out activates the hand's hip joint. And when you activate that hand's hip joint and flat finger flex the hand, it rises up into this wonderful arch structure. And that arch structure is basically the source of power and sonority and agility and everything good that's in piano technique. And when you see that arch structure down, then you see pianists with tension in the forearm and weak sonority, and sometimes the fingers move very well, but the sound is not big. Now, because Kemal is here, I have to put one caveat in. Kemal doesn't like to play with a high arch. Arthur Rubinstein has the most prominent arch. His hand is really wonderful in that regard. Kemal's is a little lower. And for years, I tried to imitate that and got into trouble because I did not have the strength. But he can afford to put his hand down a little bit because the muscles which create the arch are still totally alive and working and doing everything for him. So what happens in Kemal's hand is that instead of that action growing the arch, that action translates directly into sound. So it's not necessary to have the arch. It's necessary to have the part of the hand which would grow that arch alive and capable and capable of moving in any direction and to any degree. In other words, you have to have total control over it. So the next question, if the hand is a mini body, well, how did we as when we were a mini body, when we were a baby, in other words, how did we learn movement? How did we learn to stand and walk and run and jump? Well, we all had a pre-standing apprenticeship. We all lay on our bellies for a year and we went goo goo gaga blah blah, and we pushed our legs and we pushed up with our arms like this, but without the complicated, stressful needs to actually stand up and walk. And when a kid does it for the first time, it's like, whoa! So the number of movements which are learned in the first year of our life are probably more than all the other movements we learn later. It's very complex, and like, for instance, simple extending of the spine, the first lifting of the head. If the extensors of the spine do not learn to work, who could stand up? Rotation, individual movement of the limbs, and it goes on and on and on. So a part of Pianimals is going to take the hand back to a pre-standing apprenticeship. We're going to lie the hand down and then do many of the movements of piano playing, but with the heel of the hand on key. Oh, wait a minute. My computer's in the way. Let me... Is that better? Or can you still... Is it still blocking? Hold on a second. There, that should be better. There.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. So, and then, so I don't want to talk too long because we actually want to get to the actual lesson, the awareness through piano movement lesson, which we're going to do. But I needed to summarize a few of these things for the people who are here for the first time, and just to get an idea of where we're going. So the idea of standing and walking with a hand arch which resembles the legs and the pelvis and the forearm, that's central to what we're doing. You'll notice that when I walk, the legs walk individually, but the torso just is smooth. The torso doesn't go da, da, The legs are going da, 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 but the torso is going smoothly. So on the piano, the fingers are walking, but the arm is moving like a dancer's torso. And first of all, if you bring the weight of the arm to every note, then that would be like walking and carrying the weight of the torso on every step. So again, we come to a very ingenious way of resolving one of the biggest problems in piano, which is that overly weighted touch that ruins the phrase. You've got big healthy tone, but the notes are not connected. The way to connect the tone is to make the arm movements lateral. So first of all, you've got a singing line. Now if you even choreograph the arm movements, you can turn that phrase into an individual, a specifically inflected phrase. And so once again, we're going to be walking, but we're also going to be using lateral movements of the arm to make the arm have its musical job to do. The fingers produce tones, the arm joins the tones. So once that simple clarification is there, then we can free ourselves from a lot of problems which have plagued pianists for years. For instance, over-relaxation. We were all taught to relax. But when you relax, you're now dead. You can't move. So instead of relaxing, we're going to activate. And we're going to activate into this paradigm of legs that are walking, torsos that are floating. Yeah? Now, okay, legs that are walking, legs that are walking, legs that are walking. Oops, oh my gosh, there's that thumb. So this thumb would seem to put a wrench into the works. It's very, very different from the fingers, and many pianists will try to equalize the thumb and make the thumb just like another finger. And then the hand is totally disempowered. Why? Because the design of the human hand is to grasp. And in grasping, the thumb opposes itself to the fingers. But wait a minute, if the thumb's opposing to the fingers, how can it play the piano? It's going up. Well, if you unoppose the thumb, unoppose it, unoppose it, unoppose it, unoppose it, bring it around here, oh my goodness, at the very beginning of that arc of opposition, you can actually use it to play. Now you will notice that my whole thumb is playing the proximal phalange, the distal proximal, proximal, and the metacarpal bone. So when you put the thumb under in a scale, the metacarpal bone does not move. You see, the metacarpal bone did not move. When you oppose the thumb to put that thumb under, now the metacarpal bone is moving and the hand did not fall. the hand did not stumble, the hand did not create tension within itself. So bringing thumb opposition to the game is a very, very important part. And in Pianimals, we've actually likened the thumb to an ugly duckling. If he tries to be like his ducky brothers and sisters, he is totally disempowered. But actually, he's a swan. He's much more powerful, and eventually he will actually carry his ducky sisters and brothers. So, enough theory. You are all at the piano, so would you just play a couple of notes on the piano and just sense, and we're only going to do this with one arm because we have no time to do both arms. So afterwards you're going to have to compare the arm that worked to the arm that didn't work. So just try playing a couple of notes. Please mute your mics. And do you play with a kind of a articulated touch, or do you play with a very light touch? Or do you play with a down motion? Do you play with an up motion? Do you feel activity in your upper arm? Do you feel activity in your body? Do you feel that your body is not necessarily moving around a lot, but somehow connected to what you do? Or do you just drop the arm down and stay inert in the body? How is it for you? So the first exercise we're going to do uncovers something which you may not be aware of which you may not be aware. So now, would you please, you'll see what it is as we go along. Would you please close the piano lid, raise your arm in the air. Okay, and now, first of all, put your other hand on your shoulder here and raise your arm. Do you feel the muscles engaging in your shoulder area? Do you feel muscles engaging? Just rest, 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 rest. And now, what happens to the muscles in your armpit when you raise the arm? Oh my gosh, they're all contracting. Can you feel that? What happens to the muscles around the collarbone? I wish we were doing this in German, because the word for collarbone in German is Schlüsselbein. It's the best word in the universe. Schlüsselbein. Yeah. Oh my God, there's all this activity up here, muscular activity, which I never even knew about. Let's just try lifting the hand. Let's just lift the hand. Can I lift the hand lightly and not have any muscular activity in the rib cage, around the shoulder, on the Schlüsselbein? Oh my goodness, if I really slow it down and go softer and smaller, I start feeling that even if I just lift my hand a little bit, the muscles are engaging. So, that is as it should be. So when I drop my hand to disengage the muscles, they're actually not ready to play. So now, raise the arm, raise the arm, raise the arm, and let the fingers dangle, okay? And now, let the arm drop very slowly, and watch what happens to your hand when the finger hits the fall board. Did something stabilize in the finger? Did something stop the finger from moving further? Try again. And sense what happens when the finger touches down. Do you automatically stiffen something? This is the piano playing response, the piano playing reflex. It's almost impossible to get out of it. But now, try to get out of that reflex. So I'll do it with the other hand. Don't you change hands, but I'm switching hands so you can see better. Let the arm come down, let the arm come down, and when the finger touches, don't do anything. Just let it crumple, let it uncrumple. Again. Let it crumple, 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 let it uncrumple, let it uncrumple, let it uncrumple. Don't you change arms, just watch and do it again. And notice that, do you find that as you're letting it crumple, something inside you wants to play the piano? Something inside you wants to grab that key. but you're actually inhibiting that something. And notice, is there a change in the feeling of your arm? When instead of flopping to relax, you control very precisely the degree of engagement or of disengagement of any number of muscles throughout the fingers and the hand and the arm. Do the same thing on key. You can monitor your arm with your other hand if you like. You don't have to make a sound. Did you see what I did? I touched down, and my finger was so crumply that there was no sound. But that's okay. Try a different finger. If you turn the arm a little bit this way, it's the second finger. If you turn the arm more, this is pronation. Pronation, supination. Supination is turning the thumb up. Pronation is turning the thumb down. If you supinate a little more, you can get your fifth finger into a key and let it crumple. Oh, no sound. A little less, and it's the fourth. Oh, there's a sound. It doesn't matter whether there's a sound or not. Yeah? Crumple, crumple, crumple. I suppose you could even do the thumb. Crumple, 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 crumple. Oh, it's really hard. I find it very difficult to let the thumb totally... Don't stabilize or form that thumb into any sort of a structure. Let it just crumple. Okay? Now, this time, just when you're going to crumple, come back up. Come back up. Come back up. Okay? That is, actually, that is the tightrope walker. That is on, I'll tell you what page. Keep doing it while I'm finding the page. Sorry. Yeah. It's the tightrope walker. So we can actually play a piece. We don't have to go so high every time if we're playing the piece, if we're teaching our students this. The advanced version goes like this. Oh my goodness, you managed to repeat the note without stabilizing the finger. Do not use muscles to make this finger into a structure. So actually there will be some muscles working, but they're working in such a minuscule amount that it's imperceptible. It just feels like crumpling to you. Kathy Southworth is here. My goodness, hello, Kathy. Great. Yeah? So, that's the tightrope walker on page 12 of the teacher's manual. On pogo stick on page 11 is actually designed to show you how to do it wrong. So now the pogo stick you will play and actually solidify your finger. This time, solidify it. Solidify it. Yeah. And notice how different that feels. Yeah. But still don't move the wrist down. Yeah. Just that's why you're making it a pogo stick. Yeah. And going back to Lazy Lion, which I missed, this one is, oh, it's on a black note. Okay. You see how slow the piece goes? So you actually bring this non-playing of the piano to your students. You just teaching your students or teaching yourself to engage with a key, to establish physical contact with a key without establishing any sort of solidification, muscular activity in any of the joints. That alone, if done well, will transform all your playing. Why? Because now you're playing piano, you're doing whatever. You're playing whatever, I don't know. And you're going a mile a minute. And your every joint in the piano playing mechanism is now more intelligent. You have sensitized it. It can feel better what it's doing. It can make tiny little adjustments to It can play. It can make tiny little adjustments to the shape of the phrase. It can bring the phrase to a crescendo here, or a diminuendo, or any sort of shape you want. But with the sensitivity of each joint increased, the brain has a better chance of doing exactly what you want musically. I've received this question quite a few times in the question and answers from the first series. What if I use this arm floating technique for a Chopin nocturne, or for a Haydn sonata slow movement, or for this or for that? Yes, of course. These techniques are designed to be applied to the repertoire, but we do them in isolation to take them to the extreme, to really feel to what degree can I crumple my finger? To what degree can I educate every joint of my finger to return it to a state of, oh my God, I'm so relaxed that I'm not doing anything, and yet I'm ready to do a certain something which establishes a greater sensitivity to the key. So now, let your two arms hang by the sides and just notice whether the arm that did this exercise feels differently from the one that did not do it. Is the arm more sensitive, or is it warmer, or is it colder? Does it feel longer or shorter? Can you actually feel physical sensations that are different between left and right? If you lay your hands on your thighs, is there a difference in the sense of weight that the hand brings to the thigh? Now, we don't want a dead weight, but if the hand that worked is heavier, it means it's more let go, not into deadness, but into a readiness to move. So these exercises, as I said in the introduction to the Pianimals Teacher's Manual, many of them may not resemble piano playing much at all, but that's the ingenious part. They hone certain underlying components of a movement, thus bringing a greater capability to the movement as a whole. So that's what we were doing here by floating the arm. I'm going to jump around a little bit today from this section to that section because it's an introduction, and so we'll touch a little bit on various parts. The sessions that is coming up, it's going to be 8 weeks, and we will focus on one of the 8 sections in Pianimals each week. So for those of you who were here for the first 8 weeks, that was the subject matter from the first lecture, but you'll see that today we did a totally different awareness through movement lesson on it than we did the first time around 8 weeks ago. So each of these exercises is so rich that there are many variations that we can explore together. Now, I spoke about the pre-standing apprenticeship. So that's the second section of Pianimals. It comes on page 15, called Lying Down. So now, instead of floating the entire arm, just bring the hand, actually let's do this on a table first, or on the fallboard of your piano, and just lay the entire forearm, if you can, or just the heel of your hand, if you can't do the forearm. Either way is good, and let it go completely. And now, having let especially the heel of the hand lie heavily, begin maybe to roll a little bit this way and a little bit that way. So I'm rolling my forearm. I can do it with just the heel on the piano, or I can do it with my entire forearm on the piano. But I'm rolling the forearm, so now the outside of the hand is a little, and the outside of the wrist is a little more in contact. And now the inside of the hand and the thumb is a little more in contact. And now in the middle, the middle of the heel of the hand is a little more in contact. And actually you roll the arm so that you're rolling the wrist on the piano like this, and find how many points of contact can you establish. Okay, 1. Now I rolled it a millimeter. 2. Another millimeter. 3. Another millimeter. 4. Another millimeter. 5. Another 6. 7. I'm a little more than halfway. 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I did 11. I could probably do more, but I'm rushing a little bit because, we're a lot of people here and we have a lot to cover. Again, go back the same way. How many points can you establish? Do you notice that the more points you establish, do you notice your arm is letting go? Do you notice your shoulders letting go? Do you notice that everything is letting go? So you thought you were already let go. You just put your hand on key or your arm on the fall board and you felt you were totally let go. But now, let's explore the points of contact. The wrist has 8 bones. 4 of them are in back, 4 of them are in front. So I'm each time I move, I'm bringing a different part of one of the wrist bones and then getting onto the next wrist bone and then another part of that bone and so on and so forth. And the more you actually become sensitive to the bony point of contact of the wrist as you're rolling it, the more the entire neuromotor system lets go. Because the more detail you bring to that sensation, the more the brain goes, oh, I like that detail. I want more of it. And I can get more if I loosen up muscles all around and let that bony point of contact establish itself in ever richer sensorial splendor. So now,
Alan, can I?
yes.
This is Sarah. Can I
Sarah.
quickly ask, do you find that you have more wrist contact with your knuckle bridge higher or lower?
Oh, excellent question. I have no idea. Let's try. When it's higher, when the arch is higher, I'm more on the part of the wrist bone closest to the forearm. And when I let the arch go, then I'm more on the middle of this, like the front wrist bones. So with a lower arch, I'm more on the front wrist bones, and with the higher arch, I'm more on the back wrist bones. So that's a wonderful variation, Sarah. Thank you. I would try both. Yeah.
I was noticing that when I relaxed my hand, my wrist completely loses contact and I can fit like an entire finger under there.
Oh, then I would bring the arch up. So watch. So
Okay.
so I don't know. You can see you're a little bit like this, and then if I bring the arch up, the hand instantly goes down. The arm instantly goes down. Lower the arch, the arm goes up. Raise the arch, the arm goes down. It's like a drawbridge. Yeah.
Huh. And I think I've been noticing.
Sarah, don't curl your fingers when you do that.
Oh,
Yeah. No, and don't even strain the finger. Don't actually do a grasping motion like this. Just actually cock the hand. And the fingers kind of they stay straight and they get dragged along, but they don't make any effort. The effort is in the hand extensors. It's actually the wrist extensors. You're actually extending the wrist and leaving the fingers behind and leaving them flat. There, try it that way. Did you see what happened?
so I'm using my finger to lift my knuckle bridge.
No. Use the wrist to lift the knuckle bridge. The effort is in muscles in here. The effort is not in the fingers. The fingers stay let go. And the wrist does this, and the fingers get dragged along closer to the heel. And that should bring the forearm down.
This is really fascinating. Thank you so much.
This is prime. What Sarah just called our attention to is perfect, because it calls into attention that the function of this skeletal structure, you cannot deal with one part without dealing with the whole. And when you call attention to one part and then figure out how it relates to the whole, and then figure out a relationship of effortfulness from different parts that is going to allow the skeleton to simply behave like a skeleton and without tension blocking the movement of one joint or another joint, then you bring that back to the piano. And again, all the parts of yourself that play the piano have become more intelligent because they have been sensorially educated. Okay? So that was a wonderful little vignette of how we use self-perception and self-introspection to take this process further and to educate ourselves at the sensorial level to play the piano in a way that respects the mechanics of the thing.
Thank you,
Great.
sir.
Yeah. So now I'm jumping around. Sleepy Bear is it's an exercise where you actually take that rolling much further. Now we improved rolling by micro moving it, and now we're going to take it to the macro. So if you do that on key, you might even be playing notes or not playing notes. And Sleepy Bear is on page 25. And in Sleepy Bear, you actually, oh my God. Oh no, sorry. You roll this way and roll that way and roll this way and roll that way. So again, who would play the piano like that? Nobody. Unless you're a 21st century composer, perhaps. Sorry. But when you play like that, it opens up something in the hand so that when you play more normally, you feel freer and you feel more capable of standing, walking, running, jumping. Yeah. So before we had rolling like that, the first one is simply to
I'm personally thinking of at least 3 students that would really enjoy playing Sleepy Bear. Anybody else have kids that enjoy exploring the piano?
Am I back? Thanks for filling in, Sarah. I don't know what happened. My internet just froze. So
Statuesque.
I got very statuesque. So when I flick the finger under, my hand cocks back, and my elbow, I don't know if you can see this, my elbow actually descends. And my body's moving too, look. Yeah, so you see, it's never about tension. It's never about isolation. It's about, yes, curling the finger, but integrating that finger curl into a whole body movement, okay? So that's
Alan,
seal. Yes?
sorry about to ask you. I don't know where this explanation comes from. This is Rubia. It's because we froze much before that. So you are talking about the sleeping bear. So I'm not sure how did you get to the curly and the
Oh my
explanation
God.
you just did.
How long was I frozen?
Well, sleeping bear would be the
Oh my God. Okay.
departure.
Hi, Karina.
1 to 2 minutes of freeze time.
Okay, so I was blabbering on and I didn't even know that I was frozen. Sorry about that. So we went from Sleepy Bear to Sassy Seal, which is on page 17. And perhaps at this point, for those of you who are new, and many of you do not even have the PDFs or the book, the Pianimals, I put all the exercises into the teacher's manual. So there's 28 chapters plus 21 for the body. Now the pupils books have much bigger illustrations, but very, very few words. I did not want to clutter the pupil's mind up with words. So sometimes there's a couple of indications on how to play a piece, but mostly it's just the music, and so that's Pupils Volume 1, Pupils Volume 2. Then Pointers has just a couple, 12 actually, of the exercises illustrated with photographs. So you'll see that right now we're doing number 11, which is flicking the finger back. And I don't know if you can see, but there are little arrows indicating the path of the fingertip. And so these are small summaries of some of the most important exercises in bullet form with photographs so that you can really figure out what's going on. And then the playbook is it's with all the pieces in primo secundo form. So secundo on the left-hand side of the page, primo on the right-hand side of the page. So this is for duets and for your class recitals and for ease of performance. So the basic idea is that the basic idea. Are you talking to me, Karina?
I was asking if you are the composer.
Yes, I'm the composer. Yeah. But I'm not the artist. I have a wonderful guy here who did the illustrations, but I wrote all the music. Hanno reharmonized a couple of them for me, but apart from that, it's me. Yeah. So the idea is that the teacher has all 5 books and the pupils have only these 2. And when they come to play the class recital, then they get to play out of the playbook, etc., etc. So, where were we? We were back from Sleepy Bear to Sassy Seal. Sassy Seal. And in that one, you flick the finger back, but do not flick the finger back and stiffen. Flick the finger back such that the hand cocks back and the elbow lowers, and there's a whole body movement. We're never about the finger lifting school where you isolate. We're never about curling the finger in a way that stiffens the entire body. Any finger curl has to ripple back through the whole arm and the whole body. So that's what we're doing here. And then afterwards we so if you give this to your students, make sure that their heel is resting on the key edge and that they're not tensing in any sort of a way. This can be done with a bird beak too. Over the page we have making a bird beak. We could do the Suzuki ones like that. Yeah, so if you take the heel of the hand, but then take all the fingers and bunch them tightly together, you have an instant graphic feeling of the structural and functional power of the hand. Again, virtually never going to play with a bird beak. Actually, you'd be surprised how often you can play with a bird beak. For instance, Prokofiev toccata. You can play large swaths of the toccata with an actual bird beak touch. But you see, what happens when you make a bird beak? All the muscles are galvanized. All the standing muscles, all the arch creating muscles, all the key moving muscles are galvanized, and the hand comes together, and that skeletal structure, there are no anomalies in there. There are no contradictions in there. There are no inversions in there, where the hip joint is trying to be lower than the knee, for instance. That resolves all the inversions instantly. Now, it's too stiff. Okay, it's too stiff, but now all those muscles know what to do, and now you just make them a little less stiff, and they're running free, and they're active, and they've found their place in the structural functional aggregate. Yeah. So there are a couple of other lying down things, but that's basically lying down, and I did want to only touch on those and move to the thumb. So you can see in the picture of there's a thumb underneath the water there, and the ducklings are hanging around the fingers, and that ugly duckling is hanging around the thumb because he's a swan. So I've already spoken about the thumb. So now let's get right to the and I mentioned that many pianists, they will use the thumb and not use the metacarpal bone of the thumb at all. It's a major problem. So if you try to put your thumb under by flexing it, the metacarpal bone will tend to stay out of the game, and that's disaster. For instance, you have this hand structure, you put the thumb under like that, already you've fallen down. You have no more structure. You're trying like heck to keep it up, but it's failing you because the thumb does not have its full extent. So the metacarpal bone, it's the thigh bone of the thumb. And that's very different from the finger bone because the fingers have 3 phalanges. And the proximal phalange is the thigh bone of the finger. Now the thumb I used to think the thumb had 3 phalanges too. But actually it doesn't. It has 2 phalanges and a metacarpal bone. The finger metacarpal bones are in the hand. The thumb metacarpal bone moves free. That's why we can oppose. So when you try to make the thumb like the fingers, it doesn't have a metacarpal bone, it just has a phalange. But when the thumb becomes a swan and not an ugly duckling, its metacarpal bone comes into full play. So this whole section, the thumb, is designed to get that metacarpal bone in the game. So first of all, we do it by simply clamping the thumb onto the fist, and then raising it, and then clamping it. And now put your other hand on the thenar muscles. And as you clamp the thumb, do you feel only your phalanges moving, or do you feel the metacarpal bone coming down, clamping itself to the fingers? So you should feel the metacarpal bone clamping itself to the finger. The metacarpal bone coming free, the metacarpal bone clamping. Again, I'm doing this clearer than I did it last time for those of you who are with me from series 1. Yeah. Then watch this. I'm going to slide the thumb on the second finger. Slide the thumb on a curled second finger. And of course, don't do this tense, tense. As you're sliding the thumb away from you, extend the arm. As you're sliding the thumb towards you, bring the arm towards yourself. Slide the thumb. Now, as the thumb slides towards you, it will curl. It will curl. But does the metacarpal bone stop moving? So actually what's happening is that the metacarpal bone of the thumb is very clearly moving with the arm, and the hand is moving independent of the arm. You see it from the other side. The hand is actually extending and flexing as the thumbs roll like that. Now, try the clamping again. Clamp again. Free again. Clamp again. Free again. Clamp lightly. Clamp lightly. Hardly, like 2 grams pressure. For Americans, that's a half an ounce. And then increase it to 3 grams. That's an ounce. Then 5 grams. That's an ounce and a half. And so on and so forth, until it's like several pounds worth of pressure, and then gradually, slowly reduce. Again, if you do this carefully and feel up in here, you can feel muscles engaging. Oh, they're engaging more. Oh, they're engaging more. Oh, they're engaging more. Oh, they're engaging more. And now, when you release as slowly and as gradually as possible. Release, and feel those muscles disengaging. And if you do it slowly enough, everything shifts. It's really weird. You feel the shoulder bones kind of like going to a new place, because all of a sudden all the muscles that held them there have decided to let go a little bit, because then I can feel better the myriad degrees of clamping and non-clamping. Can I bring 100 degrees of clamping from 1 ounce to 100 ounce and feel every step along that line? Maybe I can't, maybe it's impossible, but it's an admirable goal, because the more you fill that goal, the greater differentiation and ability to adjust and to respond to the exigencies of a particular pianistic situation, the greater ability all the arm muscles and the shoulder muscles and the body muscles, as well as the thumb muscles and the hand muscles, the greater they develop that ability. Okay, take that thumb, turn it over, and stand on key. Now, how many of you, when you stood on the key, I'll do it here so you can see better. You can try it on the table too if you don't have to do it on the key at first. There are several problems with this. Some people, they stand on the nail and it's uncomfortable to stand on the nail. So in that case, move a little bit more onto the thumb pad. So if you're on the nail, ouch, 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 get off the nail by moving a little bit more towards the pad of the thumb. Now, many people will collapse the thumb when they do that. Is it possible for you to get up onto the tip of the thumb without any collapse anywhere? Many of you will have to use 5 grams of pressure at first, or no pressure, just touching. And many of you, the thumb will bend the wrong way. So there are so many different ways the thumb can collapse. So you stand with the fingers loose on the thumb and then gradually make a fist and bring that fist in close till it's nudged up against the thumb. And notice that movement rippled way back through my whole body. Huh?
Alan, can I ask you a question about exactly this movement that you're doing?
Yes, Karina.
First knuckle of the thumb. I notice yours is overextended when you're doing this exercise. Do you have any thoughts about this?
I do. I absolutely do. So we spoke earlier how many pianists curl the fingers very well, but the hand's hip joint, the metacarpal bone, the metacarpal phalangeal joint, tends to be underdeveloped in pianists, especially pianists who have problems. Now, you can develop the metacarpal phalangeal joint in a way that's kind of gross bodybuilding, but if you develop it in a way where it is more active, the hip joint of the hand is more in the game, you're going to be better off. So what I do in order to facilitate that, in many cases, I will go to a one-boned finger. So if I just pretend that I have no ankle and I have no knee and I just work my hip joint, then that's gonna wake my hip joint up. And it needs waking up because it's the one that's not in the game enough. Now, as I did that, you see the distal joint splayed. It bent the wrong way. Many teachers write on the piano forums, what do I do? My pupils, my little kids, their fingers bending the wrong way. And I say let them bend their finger the wrong way if it is to the end of activating the hand's hip joint. So my thumb, yes, it bends the wrong way, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to get the sense of the thigh bone. And so you see, it's like a one bone thumb. I mean, that bone is curved, but it's really like a one bone thumb. The femur is actually curved as well. So my teacher, Phil Cohen, used to say that it's an arm thumb. And when we did this one, we felt how the thumb is connected much more directly to the arm than the fingers. So you see the fingers are kind of, actually, no, I'm not doing that well. Visually, it looks like the fingers are connected, but I'm feeling that my arm is connected to the thumb and the fingers are off to the side. So maybe I have to show that at some sort of other angle. I don't know. Anyway, that question is very important. So I allow the thumb to bend the wrong way. I will allow the distal phalange to bend the wrong way if I am doing it to bring the hand's hip joint. The thumb's hip joint does not attach to the pelvis. It attaches directly to the base of the spine. In, where is that picture? I have a picture here. Oh, no. I had my artist, yeah, there it is. I had my artist draw, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on the camera, but it's an archaeological dig, and they found an ancient hand, or an animal that's kind of like a hand, but you see the thumb goes directly to the forearm, whereas the fingers go through the wrist. So the metacarpal bones, I mean. So it's as if the thumb doesn't. There's no pelvis on one side of this pianistic hand. Yeah. So I tried to, the hand is asymmetrical, very asymmetrical, and we need to use that asymmetry to empower the hand. If I stand that thumb up, then you'll notice that there's Louise Robine, Chicago teacher, wrote many books on technique, and she talked about the balcony position. I want to have a black background. Let's see. Black background. There, black background. Balcony position. So the thumb is the mommy, the fingers, try this. The fingers are the babies. They're in the movie theater, they're upstairs, and the babies can't see over the railing of the balcony, so mommy lifts them up. And Louise said that this has to be about a 70-degree angle. And again, when people first try this, they do it stiffly. And when I'm trying to do it, I feel my shoulder stiffening, and then, no, don't stiffen the shoulder, make it a movable. It's a cantilever structure. The whole hand and arm is standing on the thumb, and the fingers are out like a cantilever. When your hand acquires this, the fingers run much more freely because the thumb is not abandoning its primary role as supporting everything. So this first thumb stand exercise is designed to do that, and then try standing on a key or on the table, on the floorboard, and screwing the thumb like this. Where does your thumb collapse? Where does it feel empowered to stand better when you turn your thumb like a screwdriver? The next part of the screwdriver exercise is, and what's going on in the shoulder? What's going on in the clavicle? Put your other hand on your clavicle. As you do the thumb screwdriver movement, did you lose the potency of your fist, or does the fist stay nicely bunched? And how does the clavicle move? How does the clavicle move? How does the shoulder blade move? You can even put your hand on your shoulder blade and feel how the shoulder blade is sliding all over the rib cage when you do the thumb screwdriver movement. Now bring the thumb down here and make a thumbprint as if you were taken into the police station and you had to leave a thumbprint, or at the border control for your passport. Yeah. And then come back up. And so now the shoulder blade is moving even farther. The shoulder blade moved way down. Oh, the shoulder blade moved way up and to the outside. Is it garbled, or is it my connection? Is anybody else garbled, or are we doing okay?
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay for you. Great. So, and now come up, and spread the fingers. Did your thumb collapse? Did you feel strain? Or did you feel an opening and an engagement of all these muscles? Let the fingers come back into a fist and come all the way back down into a thumbprint. So the oranga thumb, you see he's using his thumb to play a banana keyboard. The oranga thumb takes that movement and basically puts it in a song. So you have to, the beginners will just screw, and the more advanced people will poke, pad, stand, stretch. Poke, pad, stand, stretch, like that. And while the other while you are providing the suitably orangutangish accompaniment. Yeah. You can do more with that. You can even start to do roly-poly movements. It's amazing. This one simple little standing thumb exercise can empower the thumb no end. And of course, oh, what about the thumb in scales? Yeah, but do this a lot. And your thumb in scales will transform without you hardly even thinking about it. If you do it less, then it won't transform so much. You can roly-poly, you can even go around in circles. And just what's happening in the hand? Does the hand have difficulty keeping its fist? Or does it get very tense? Or can it just keep a modicum of contraction? So a fairly bunched fist, and it stays bunched to the same degree as you roly-poly. And you can, of course, roly-poly your body at the same time as you're roly-polying the thumb. Yeah. So we need to become aware of the thumb's structural function. It's not isolated in terms of tension, but it is isolated in terms of it's standing alone, or else it's the pillar of a cantilever structure. But in the next exercise, standing bird beak, we'll bring the fingers in to make that bird beak as we've already done. Yeah. So, yes.
Alan, question? So I assume that overextending in the second phalange is not a good idea. I can do that all the time. I mean, that's
Yeah, I spoke about how I allow things to overextend because I want to get a sense of the whole thumb, but it can be too much. So if it's overextended, like really bent, then you reduce the pressure to the point where it's overextended but to a moderate amount, and you do not increase the pressure to force it into a sort of an uncomfortable position or an exaggerated position. So in that case, you would not do the exercise with a bunched fist even. You would leave the fingers loose, and you would put 5 ounces of pressure or 5 grams of pressure, or just hardly even touch, and maybe even hold the thumb there with the other hand so you could help it just establish some sort of contact, where the alignment of the bones through, that this bone is fairly straight to that one, and that the proximal bone is fairly straight to the metacarpal bone, and it's fairly straight into the hand and the wrist. So there are many different ways of approaching this idea of skeletality and useful optimal skeletal alignment. Because some kids will be just like, they'll just be a mess. They're just wimpy. And, stand up. That sudden surge of galvanized muscular activity is good for them. Other kids are tense, or else they're hypermobile, and then you do not use a lot of for hypermobility. You always go to the sensorial style rather than the structural style. Yeah, I also talk about that in the introduction, that there are basically two ways of working here. There are more than two, but basically there's the sensorial ones, which are very low effort, hardly any effort. Sense how that joint could go a little bit this way, it could go a little bit that way. Move around, and you're balanced so lightly, like a ballet dancer that weighs 5 ounces, that you can begin to get a little bit of movability in the joint. If it was hypermobile, if you put any more pressure, it's just going to collapse. But if you reduce the pressure to the point where the hypermobility does not manifest, then that joint can start to sense itself, and it can start to become more intelligent because the sensory image has been enriched. So the cure for hypermobility is never strengthening. The cure for hypermobility is better sensory awareness of the alignments. So you do that by backing off.
very helpful, because I definitely have hyperextend in that joint, in this joint, which I never see you doing. You just don't do it.
Well, I can't. I just,
No,
yeah.
I'm just saying, obviously I have this hypermobility thing.
He's
here.
over flexible. It's visible.
Yeah.
That's really helpful to know.
Yeah, but like, I'm jealous, man. Like, you can probably bend your thumb back and touch your arm. Like, I can't do that, man. I feel totally inadequate.
Okay,
Anyway,
I have
what?
a question.
Yes.
The hypermobility, we were talking like about children with double joint, we call, I think.
Double jointed is the old word. Hypermobility is a new word.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so is that the choice or the option here would be to work more through a smaller movement?
Lighter movement. Less force. Not 5 pounds, not 2 kilograms. 2 grams. And sense more how the joint could move this way, how the joint could move that way. And for any double jointedness or hypermobility, you back off the pressure and you educate the joint by allowing it to sense, and you go to very, very fine levels of movement. Smaller movements, slower movements, and less effortful movements. That's the motto of Feldenkrais method. That's how sensory motor learning happens. Okay? So it's very important that I'm sorry, I'm glad you asked me, because I did this whole first part of the thumb, standing on the thumb. I did it structurally. And I forgot to attend to the people who have a different need. Many people will need that to be done sensorially. Okay? So then we bring it in and we do a bunch of exercises with the bird beak. And we've already done a little bit of bird beak before, so I'm going to move on. Then we slide that bird beak. So what happens when you start sliding? Sliding is a very interesting phenomenon, because sliding gives you that middle ground where you're not really structured, but you're not really let go either. If I'm too structured and I'm going to take a bird beak, thumb against the second finger. I don't need all 5 fingers in here. Let's just do the thumb and second and keep it simple. Now, if I'm sliding and I can't slide, I'm too structured. If I start to slide and the structure just collapses, I'm not structured enough. I'm too sensorial. But somewhere in the middle, oh, I can slide it. I can slide it. I can slide it on key, and then I make it into a song. So again, by sliding this way and that, I'm getting completely out of the image that I push a key down when I play the piano. This is one thing I forget where I wrote it in Pianimals, but I write it in many places, that the greatest illusion of piano playing is that the key goes down. So what? Of course the key goes down. Why would he say that's an illusion? Because when I perceive that the key is going down, something in me is bound to go down with it. And when I slide on the key, I'm going to slide in. Oh, the key went down, but I didn't make it go down. It just went down because I'm sliding on it. I'm doing indirect attack, which is the hallmark of the Leschetizky approach, by the way. So I'm establishing a moving relationship with the key. The key is a lever. Look, this finger is a lever, and now it's not going up and down. It's a lever. It's moving as a lever moves. It's moving as a lever moves. Oh, it's moving as a lever moves. And by accident, it happens to be going up and down, but the basic thing is that it's moving as a lever moves. So when I slide on key, and when I stop impinging on the key, when I stop going down with that key, when I stand up, look, slide on the key and make your body go the other way. Okay? Slide on forward on the key and make the body go backwards. What happens? There's no sense of compression. There's a sense of the hand actually grows and the body grows as well. Okay? So slide away, slide forward. Oh, I can grow that way too. So I can slide away or I can slide forward. The body can grow in both ways. If I'm playing the key, moving the key by sliding on it, I can move the same way as the slide. Or the body can go opposite to the slide, or the body can go with the slide. There are many, many variations, but in all of them, there's no I compress the key. We're getting back to this one, remember? When I crumple the finger, the key moves, but I did not compress it. When I structure the finger, I compress the key. And then there's a stiffness reaction through my whole body. The body is very sensitive to those compressions. And by the way, the piano is as well. Because as soon as there's a compression of the key, there's more impact. Feel the difference between this. Which one of these is louder? Or okay, the second one was much louder, but there was hardly any sound because I didn't compress the key. Now, when I compress the key, those vibrations, they go into the piano and they ruin the vibration of the string. Those are interference vibrations which are making the vibration of the string less clear. So you can, and now. Even over Skype, on 4 continents, you can hear the difference in tone between this one and this one. Yeah, somebody's unmuted. Who's playing this note? Could you please mute yourself?
Helena.
Thank you. So, is it clear that all we're investigating the structurality of the hand and the movability of that structure? It's all to the same end. It's all to reduce the degree to which we impinge upon the piano, the degree to which we compress the piano. And it's all to allow us to open up the piano sound. Now, the louder you play, the wrist will eventually come up above the metacarpal phalangeal joint. Thomas Mark, author of What Every Pianist Needs to Know About the Body, he says that the keystone of the arch is the wrist, and I say the keystone of the arch is the metacarpal phalangeal joint. And we even online at one point, we had this kind of polite collegial argument about it. And finally, I went to YouTube and I started watching, Michelangelo, Horowitz, Rubinstein, Richter, Gilels, and 201, universally, I was right up until about mezzo piano, maybe mezzo forte, and Thomas Mark was right from anything above mezzo forte. But when his wrist is the keystone, the metacarpal phalangeal joint does not poop out. The metacarpal phalangeal joint remains as a secondary keystone, and that's what makes the whole thing work. So here, we're standing up. We found that arch by making a bird beak, in this case, or by standing on the thumb in crocodile. The thumb's movement of reverse opposition, if I push the thumb away from the hand, that makes the hand stand up. And that is how all scales are played to the outside. So when you play a scale to the outside, your thumb is actually making a movement of reverse opposition to stand itself up and to stand. When the finger stands up, the finger's hip joint goes high. When the thumb stands up, it pushes the hip joints of the finger high. That's the difference between the thumb and the fingers from a walking, standing, running, jumping point of view. So everything we're doing in the thumb, this quiet crocodile, we pretend that it's a crocodile's jaws, and we bring it close together, and then we separate them, and then over the page it's an alligator's jaw, so that they stay further apart, because an alligator's snout is fatter than a crocodile's snout, which is very thin. Crocodile, alligator, crocodile, alligator. And then for the alligator one, we put a little birdie inside, and he doesn't want to eat the birdie, but then he gets hungry, wham, and he eats the birdie. Yeah. And then taking this metaphor further, we get into the Lippensander stallion, where now the thumb is the hind legs of the stallion. This is page 47, and the fingers are the front legs of the stallion. And then we play a piece like that. Like, how does it go? Where are we? Yeah. So have you tried? I've stopped telling you do this, do that. But have you been sort of following along and doing these movements as I've been talking about them? And how does your thumb now feel compared to before you started this? And if you play a few notes with that hand, how does it feel compared to the hand that did not do the thumb exercises sensorially and structurally and functionally? So then of course these sections are interlocked, they're not entirely independent from each other. So here the next section is standing up, and you'll see that the raccoons there are busy trying to figure out, well, what was that stallion doing and how did he stand up like that and how do I play like that? But I love the expressions on the raccoons' faces are so quizzical. Draga and my artist did a great job, I must say. Now, 7:15. So that covers several different aspects of this whole idea of how does the hand as a mini body stand up, lie down, walk, run, jump on key. We didn't even come close to previewing the whole 8 weeks which are going to follow, but we did do some stuff which we'll cover in more detail in week 1 next week. And actually, I'm going to spend 2 whole weeks, all of week 2 and all of week 3 on the thumb, because we need to get into this more. I don't have time now to go to the thumb in scales, but we're going to have more time in the actual workshop to apply these and to solve the age-old question, do I put my thumb under or not in scales? And the answer is a quote from Heraclitus. I pass and do not pass my thumb under in scales. So if you stick around, you'll be able to see how that works. And I'm wondering at this point, I've just bombarded you with a huge amount of information, both intellectual and sensory, and I'm wondering what questions you have. I'd like to open up the floor to discussion at this point. How are you all doing? And it doesn't even need to be a question. It can be an impression or a complaint or
I have a...
Yes, Eric.
On the thumb, I noticed, I don't know all the names of the parts.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, there's like a knee of the thumb.
The knee of the thumb. That would be the second joint from the tip.
And I never noticed that I had a knee.
Ah.
It's the first time I've ever realized that the knee is its own joint that can do different things. And I did not know that before. So that's all my comment.
That's a very cool new piece of knowledge. It's that has great implications.
I don't know how I'll use it, but
yeah,
it's all of a sudden, oh, I'm aware of it.
Well, what that says to me is that you're also now aware of the thigh bone. And maybe you didn't know you had a knee because you didn't know you had a thigh bone. You were using the thumb as that little part down here as the thigh bone. And now, oh my God, it's this big, huge thing here.
Yes.
Yeah. Just as the thigh bones are by far the largest bones in the body, the metacarpal bones are the largest bones in the hand. So it's a really quite a complete mapping. The mapping's not totally complete because if it was totally complete, my forearm would be vertical when I played the piano. So because my forearm is not vertical, that comes back to the very beginning when we were doing all this floating stuff. It's the activity of the biceps, triceps, like this, which creates the illusion that the forearm is floating as a vertical body would float on top of the pelvis. So it's yet another instance of how playing the piano is very definitely a whole body phenomenon. You can get a first impression of this by actually taking a bird beak and as you play a note, compress the bird beak and stand up and put your other hand on the triceps muscle behind your elbow. And you can very clearly feel, oh, that triceps contracts. The triceps contractions stabilize the hand structure, but they do not immobilize the hand structure. Just as the gluteus maximus and all these muscles in here, they're called stabilizers. But when you're running, are any of those stabilizers immobilizing? No, far from it. So it's an alive, moving stabilization that launches you onwards. And if you lay your hand flat and then simply raise your forearm, you will feel your biceps contract. Yeah. So that's very, very clear. So those two muscle groups are crucial to creating this illusion that the forearm is like the torso. Yeah.
I have one other comment, if you don't mind.
Please, fire away, fire away. The more the merrier.
A Feldenkrais practitioner a long time ago told me he had to separate my ribs from my shoulder blades.
Ah.
And so perhaps you should also train Feldenkrais practitioners on how to apply musical therapy.
I'm doing that. I run a workshop in Germany once a year at a Feldenkrais center, Hava Schellav's Feldenkrais center, called Feldenkrais for Musicians, and a lot of practitioners show up who want to know how to work with the musicians. And did you try when we were doing some sort of thumb stand today, and I said, put the hand on the shoulder blade. Did you feel how the shoulder blade is actually sliding all over the ribs?
Yes.
Yeah. 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 And so, of course, it's wonderful that you're saying this because it calls up a central problem, which is that, and many pianists do this totally unconsciously. I've seen it over and over again. And I do it myself. The actions of the finger on key are perceived as very complex. And the perception seems to be that to offer these complex levers stability so that they can move accurately and so that they don't move too far or not far enough, the body tends to solidify itself. So the body offers these levers a stable base. It's even written in Arnold Schultz, The Riddle of the Pianist's Finger, which is a wonderful book from the 1930s. But he got certain things wrong. He said in order to stabilize the base so that the finger fulcrums can move clearly and without a lack of clarity, he says to stiffen the hip joints, to stabilize the hip joints to the point of immobility so that the body is stable. And that's totally dysfunctional. You cannot play like that. The pelvis has to be moving. The last part of Pianimals is a whole body, bringing the whole body to all these movements of the hand on key. But the shoulder blade needs to slide on the ribs, but the ribs are not immobile. The ribs are also moving. They're breathing and they're riding on the pelvis, so if I rock forward and back on my hand, I can do an exercise where these two fingers are like two sits bones. There's two sits bones on the keys and two sits bones on the bench, 4 sits bones in all. And there we go. It's a moving system from top to bottom. All the fulcrums are movable. That's the elegance of the system. So it's amazing. Feldenkrais practitioners know this, but there tends to be a blind spot in applying it to musical performance. So we do have our job set out for us as in bringing these ideas that are very Feldenkrais-like in nature to the piano and seeing how every one of them manifests in improved movement and easier movement and more effective movement, but also a musical change. The phrase becomes very sinuous and supple and expressive and individual instead of plodding and stodgy. The sounds get richer and more orchestral. The weighted touch homogenizes the sound. It might be healthy, but it's all of a piece. And standing up, I already hear 6 voices in that chord instead of a homogenized C major sound. This is an individuated C major sound. So all of the ideas in here apply to musical interpretation in very, very clear ways. Oh, I just got lost. I had the end of that thought and it just went out the other ear. Anyway. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Kathy.
Yes, hi there. Long time no see.
Yeah, far too long.
Absolutely, I miss you.
Me too.
And so does Hank. He's still with us.
Oh my God. Hank's the beagle.
Yeah, so I experience with my students, that what you were talking about with it looks like the keys just go down.
Yeah.
And so then I show them the inside of the piano and all what's going on in there, all this wonderful activity that's continuous,
Wow.
with the action. But I'm wondering if, and this is something I'm going to do my own homework on, but if you have, in examples of great pianists, like maybe YouTube performances where you can physically see the sliding motion. Because as we know, we're doing it big, but at a certain level, you can't necessarily see it, especially when somebody's playing fast. It's huge. It makes a huge difference, but you can't always see it. Are there, do you know of any, video performances I could show my students where they can see that happening?
Let me put it on my list of things to do.
I'm not trying to give you more
videos.
work. I'm not
Of
trying to
course.
give you more work. I thought you might, because you were talking about.
No, this is a very good question. But were you there? Kathy has organized a concert institute for me in Concord, New Hampshire, where she's director of the music school, one of the most wonderful music schools in America. But we met at Smith College, where Christine organized an institute, and we spent one evening watching Mickey Mouse play the piano, the cats play the mice, the other mice. We found 4 of them, and it was all the Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody, or maybe one. But do you remember? One of those cartoon characters was sliding like a son of a gun. He was sliding better than anybody. So that cartoon, whoever made the cartoon went and observed some pianists, and that's what he saw.
It's great.
So you should find that one. That would, and the kids would love that.
They would probably love it, but they might say, "But that's Mickey Mouse."
So play like Mickey Mouse.
That's right.
But the thing is, it's like when you look at Horowitz doesn't often. He looks like he's slamming down. He just looks like he's doing something like that. You don't see that inside he's eminently well organized, and he's always That's what gives the electricity and clarity to his sound. But it looks like he's slamming in, basically because he just knew it so well that he just internalized it, and he was thinking about music. He didn't have time to think about, oh yes, I have to keep going up all of that. So appearances can be deceiving. That's the problem. So that Mickey Mouse thing, it's obvious. But yeah, I think you're right. We should find, because I know I've seen videos where sliding, and somebody just wrote a message that for people who have the recordings of the last 8 sessions, Rene played a lesson where his sliding, he was sliding while he was playing. So yeah, thank you, Brian. So yeah, that's a very good question. We'll have to follow it up. Great. Now, how are we doing for time? I just put myself on full screen, which means I can't see my clock. It's 7:30. Shall we wrap up the awareness through piano movement lesson, or are there any other questions before we close and move on to the individual lessons? Any other impressions, comments, questions, clarifications, complaints? We're all hanging in there. Great.
Alan,
Yes. Oh,
go ahead.
my cell phone fell into my piano. Don't call me.
Is that a poem? Okay, Rubia.
What I want to see if you could elaborate, you mentioned about the fulcrums being movable, all the fulcrums. And you mentioned, you gave that, like that movement, you talk about the sits bones.
Yeah.
So in piano playing, we would consider as well the right and left, right? It's kind.
Absolutely. Yeah, we at the end of Pianimals, there's a short exercise where you basically I ask the people to put their right ear on their right shoulder, and generally the weight goes onto the right sits bone. So now all the fulcrums have frozen. Because as soon as my weight is on my right sits bone, if I go any further, I'm going to fall over. So I got to stop myself from falling over, so everything's frozen. So now come back, put I'm doing it mirror image. Put the right ear on the right, towards the right shoulder, move the weight onto the left sits bone. Come back. And make it so as the right ear approaches the shoulder, if the weight goes onto the left sits bone, the right hip joint will actually come up. So you let the ear come down, let the hip joint come up. So this is sideways, keeping all the fulcrums movable. This is sideways, making all the fulcrums overstable. They have to overstabilize because the center of gravity has been disturbed. Now, the center of gravity is not disturbed. So then we do the other side. So you see the head's always going one way and the body's always going the other way. And then I ask you to play the piano like that. And are your arms going to follow your head, or are the arms going to follow the body? How does it work? Karina, try to keep your head really in the middle. So look, my head actually does not move side to side. My head does not move side to side. Actually, my head's moving in the opposite direction. I can see myself on the camera. That's it. That's it. Now, where do the hands go? Where did your hands go? Aha, that's right, with the head. It's totally against the laws of the body. So if I go, if I do the hand with the body, the arpeggio is supported. If I do the hand with the hand is going totally against the body and does not receive the support from the body that it needs. So yes, this all the fulcrums are engaged, also sideways. The third element, of course, so we've done flexion extension, we've done side bend. The third one is rotation. So actually how it works is that if you're playing sideways, now to get the last octave, I cannot do it in side bending, so I've got to rotate. So that's where the rotation comes in. So you start with flexion extension, then you go to side bending, and finally you go to rotation. So there's a sequencing which makes the whole thing work very nicely. Section 8 of Pianimals.
Thanks.
Cool. Now, I mean, this has been such a fascinating experience for me because I can only have 25 people, but there's 50 people here, and so there's people doing it, and I can't see them because their window is not there. And then there's all these people on Facebook Live who I can't see either. So I just have to assume the people that I've seen, that I can see here, have been doing the lessons beautifully. And I find from your questions that you've been very, very attentive and hopefully figuring things out as we go along and sort of start to explore this new metaphor. I'm really grateful that we can have this opportunity to share this approach, these ideas. And we're going to take just a couple minutes break, a water in, water out break, basically, and then we're going to have our first lesson, which is not Thera, because Thera is not feeling well today. So it's going to be Renee Maurer. Renee, are you ready to go? Hello? Ah, there you are.
Yes, I am. Hi.
Okay, so 2-minute break or 3 minutes. We say 2 because if we said 5, it would be 10. You know what I mean. We're all conference veterans. Okay, and I'm going to stop recording so that the lessons are recorded separately. And stop this.